Welcome to the first in a brand new series on my channel called the Classic Match Review, where I'll be picking some of my most favourite matches throughout the years in the WWE, whether that be Raw, SmackDown and of course pay-per-views, and giving you my thoughts on the build-up, the match itself and exactly everything that happened afterwards. So today's match we're going to begin with is CM Punk against John Cena for the WWE Championship at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view in 2011. Now this in my opinion has to be CM Punk's best match in the company, and we do know that he had a lot of great matches, but this for me stands the test of time and to this day is probably one of his most watched matches ever. I mean, especially with CM Punk not being in the company no more and reflecting back on the time that WWE had the chance to really pull the trigger on him, this has got to be a match that can be hard to watch at sometimes, but also can be great to relive that night in Chicago where the crowd was electric, of course, being his hometown. So the build up to this was brilliant. I mean, there's no two ways about it. CM Punk cutting that promo on Raw, the pipe bomb as we've come to know it, it was very, very interesting and unseen at the time. Not so much the fact that it was a work shoot, but in that era of WWE, we hadn't seen too many things like that. And I can remember specifically being up watching Raw at that time. In the UK, it would finish around about 4 in the morning. So watching that and thinking, have I kind of dreamed that promo, or have I actually just listened to him saying the names such as Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, who at the time hadn't returned to the company? But nonetheless, he explained everything that he felt was necessary, obviously talking about Triple H and Stephanie and, of course, about Vince, that famous line about how the company, might be in better shape once he's dead, and that several wrestlers, of course, just spokes in the wheel. But, back to that build-up, I felt it was very unique for the time. Obviously, we had that contract segment with Vince where he had a negotiation live on Raw. And, it was just entertaining TV. I mean, my complaint with WWE these days is that we get great wrestling, but not the entertainment, not the storylines that go with it. And for me, this was perfect at the time. It was that one storyline I looked forward to on Monday nights to, see where they would progress and what would be next in this chapter. And ultimately, this led to CM Punk being suspended. As we know, when he returned, he had the contract negotiation with Vince. And then the match was set for him and Cena, where if Cena doesn't beat Punk, he'll be fired. And of course, if Punk wins, he'll leave the WWE with the title on the night that his contract ends. So there were high stakes set for this match. So that was a ticked box. And then on top of that, it was the fact it was in his hometown, CM Punk's hometown of Chicago. So you couldn't really ask for a better atmosphere that night. And third, it was CM Punk and Cena specifically, who, was the kingpin of the company at that point, Vince's golden boy. And, I've got ultimate respect for John Cena. I think he's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And I've gained that respect for him through the years. Maybe not the start, but as you see him through the years, you can have nothing but respect, in my opinion, anyway. But the point is, at that particular time, Cena's Vince's golden boy, and the stage was set. So the match itself, I mean, what can you say? A 5-star classic if I was going to give it a 5-star rating, like a Meltzer rating or something, but I couldn't give it any more, any less, really. It was perfect. The story they were telling in the ring was great. The anticipation by the fans to see whether Punk would actually lift the title, because we all knew that it was legitimate, his contract was expiring, but eventually we did come to find out that he actually signed the contract on the night of the show. So that in itself was pretty amazing knowing that now. But yeah, the match was great. Everything you'd expect from these two. And I say that because Cena does get a lot of stick, as, a lot of people maybe to this day even say CM Punk, was the only great factor of the match, that he can wrestle and Cena can't. And I think it's stupidity to say something like that, because John Cena has proven time and time again in his career that he can have great matches, from the time he was having his US Championship Open in 2013, I believe, making that title a little bit more relevant on Raw, to numerous other points in his career. The point being is, Cena deserves as much credit as Punk did on that particular night. And I remember the pop initially that Punk got when he entered the ring, and the boos for Cena. I mean, I think Jerry the King Lawler was trying to really play up the fact that the CM Punk cheers were something along the lines if a Chicago team in American sports had won their sport, their competition had been won in the city of Chicago. I don't really know a lot about American sports apart from maybe the NBA, which I watch, but the point is he was really playing up the fact that it was a purely Chicago crowd, and they would be cheering for anybody who would be from Chicago at that point, any sports team, wrestler, whatever it may be. And Michael Cole did acknowledge that Cena was entering a cauldron, of course, with the hometown support firmly in favour of Punk. And eventually we got the part in the match where Vince came out and he was almost signifying a ring of the bell, and I think John Laurinaitis followed him, and I think it was a way of having Cena win cheaply. Cena didn't want that, of course. He took out John Laurinaitis, I believe it was, and in the end he walked right into a go to sleep by Punk. And when that third slap of the wrist went down to the mat by the referee, the ovation in the Allstate Arena that night, I could only imagine. I mean, watching it on the television was one thing, but in that arena, it must have been absolutely awesome. And Punk, of course, that great moment, that great picture where he's blowing a kiss to Vince McMahon and leaving with that WWE Championship. And, that pay-per-view, all in all, was brilliant, but that match was just the icing on the cake. And I think, all in all, what you have to understand is that's as good as it got at that point. I mean, Punk winning the title, and after that, it went downhill from there. I mean, we had the storyline where John Cena was about to be fired, but then Vince got relieved of his power by Triple H, and that's where he entered this storyline in, and that's a story for another day. But CM Punk basically returned after only 2 weeks after this match, and if you were going to build a storyline where it was champion versus champion, which is what it was at SummerSlam, you'd rather wait that out, long as possible. In ideal world, I'd probably book that to last till WrestleMania, have Punk nowhere near the WWE, but yet be that champion. And they could have crowned another champion in the meantime, and then eventually have that match at WrestleMania, and then the anticipation would have been growing and growing, but it wasn't to be. They pulled the trigger way too early, had Punk come back, face Cena at SummerSlam, and what happened? Kevin Nash, I mean, I've got no issue with Kevin Nash, but does he really fit that scenario? Coming back, taking out CM Punk with a jackknife, and then Alberto Del Rio comes out and wins a title? It's just, no, it just does not fit that scenario, does it? I mean, saying it out loud, it actually sounds even weirder than it should do. But yeah, that's where they went with this. And then, of course, CM Punk lost a lot of momentum, especially involved with Triple H and Kevin Nash and whatever it was. And in the end, this is probably still the best moment of that summer of Punk, along with the pipe bomb. But what more could have been in that storyline? But the match itself, like I said, an instant classic. 5 stars if I was giving it a star rating. But, I probably will be giving matches star ratings. In fact, it just makes it easy to describe. And, I could go for every single move to move, but it's not that sort of match where you need somebody to comment move to move. You'll have to watch it. I've got footage of it here. Of course, while I'm speaking over it, and that just in itself doesn't do it justice. I'd recommend to go and watch it whenever possible, especially if you're bored and you want that wrestling kick, because this is just it. And for me, definitely still probably the best match at that pay-per-view since it started in 2010, these Money in the Bank shows. I know Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins just a couple of days ago, while this was recorded, it's only 2 days since the 2020 pay-per-view was just finished, and I know that was in itself a great match, but still nowhere near this classic. And yeah, will always be one that I'd happily go and watch at any point if I'm in the mood to indulge on some classic wrestling. But for me, CM Punk's best match in the WWE, another one of Cena's classics that he's had numerous ones over the past few years. And yeah, a lost opportunity ultimately afterwards, but the build as well, brilliant. But yeah, it's a shame we just don't get an entertaining, captivating TV like that, because in my opinion it was. But yeah, thanks for watching my first video, which is the classic match review. This was CM Punk versus John Cena at the Money in the Bank in 2011 for the WWE Championship. My videos will be coming back week to week. I reckon I'll be doing a match every week, reviewing a classic match of my choosing. And the next match that I'll be reviewing is going to be Cactus Jack versus Triple H from the Royal Rumble in 2000. Another personal favourite of mine, as these all will be. And I'll be back for that. But I hope you enjoyed this classic match review, my thoughts on what was one of my favourite matches of all time. And I will see you again in the next one. Thanks for watching.